I pulled out the contract and went straight to clause 14. Most clients never even noticed it, but I had. It said Aurora Grand could cancel any event if there was fraud, financial abuse, or disrespect. A bitter smile spread across my face. They thought I would stay quiet. But the contract itself was my weapon. That same afternoon, I told my events manager to call Clara. My voice was calm, but every word was steel. Mitchell, tell your mom and Ethan this. If I don't get a proper apology and an official invitation to the wedding by 5 o'clock today, the whole event is canceled. The ballroom, the garden, the restaurant, even the guest rooms for out-of-town guests gone. The deposit will be lost. The line went quiet. Then Clara laughed sharply. You're bluffing, Maya. This wedding has been planned for months. Guests have already booked flights from Europe. You wouldn't dare. I replied calmly, I can. And I will. Unless I get the respect I deserve. The call ended. Within an hour, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Ethan, Clara, and Margaret all tried to call me. I ignored them. They needed to understand the power was mine, not theirs. At 4:30, the front desk told me the Mitchells and Ethan had arrived. They wanted a meeting. I had them sent to the grand conference room, where the contract and all the financial papers were already waiting. When I walked in, the air felt heavy. Clara's face was red, her eyes wet with tears. Margaret sat stiff, lips pressed thin. Ethan's eyes flickered with anger and shame. And for the first time, Clara's father, Richard Mitchell, was there. His face looked sour, but his voice was calm and sharp. Maya, let's handle this sensibly. This is just a misunderstanding. No need for ultimatums. I stood tall, my voice clear but cutting. Mr. Mitchell, this is not a misunderstanding. Your wife and daughter cut me, Ethan's sister, out of the guest list. And all while using my money to fund this wedding. That is abuse, and it breaks the contract. I have the full right to shut this wedding down. Clara burst into tears. We just wanted the day to be perfect without family fights ruining it. I stared right at her. Perfection cannot be built on humiliation. If you really want to marry Ethan, at least respect his family. Margaret snapped, her teeth clenched. This is blackmail, Maya. You are ungrateful. Without Clara, your brother wouldn't even be in high society. I laughed coldly. Without me, Ethan wouldn't even have this hotel to marry in, or the $65,000 to pay for it. So tell me, who's really ungrateful? Finally, Ethan spoke, his voice shaking. Maya, you're going too far. This is my wedding day. Can't you bend just this once? I turned to him, my eyes blazing. I've bent over backwards all this time, Ethan. I gave money, time, and endured Clara and her mother's insults, all for you. And my reward? Being erased from your wedding. The room went silent. At last, Richard sighed heavily, like a man admitting defeat. What do you want, Maya? I answered slowly, each word sharp. A formal apology. A seat of honor. And recognition that I am family, not a servant. Margaret opened her mouth to protest, but Richard cut her off. Clara, Margaret, enough. Maya is right. Without compromise, we lose everything. Clara's eyes were swollen as she whispered, I'm sorry, Maya. I shouldn't have let my feelings control me. Margaret's jaw was tight, but she forced out the word, sorry. Ethan bowed his head. I'm sorry, Maya. His apology came too late, but at least it reminded me of the brother I used to know. I gathered the papers and spoke firmly. Good. The wedding will continue. But remember this, I am not someone you can erase. I am Maya Walker. And I will never let anyone diminish me again. The silence grew heavier. No one dared speak. I walked out of the room lighter, but deep down I knew the real storm was only beginning. The wedding took place on a glowing June morning. Aurora Grand sparkled like a fairy tale castle. White flowers draped the arches, soft music floated from a string quartet, banquet tables shimmered with satin. Guests from everywhere arrived, many powerful in business and politics. I sat in the front row, wearing a simple but elegant navy dress. My back straight, my gaze calm. I was no longer the forgotten sister. This place now felt like it truly belonged to me. Ethan stood at the decorated altar in his tuxedo. He looked handsome, but I could see the worry in his eyes. The music grew louder and Clara entered with her father, Richard. Her dress sparkled with crystals and everyone gasped. She walked proudly, smiling like a queen. The ceremony started. The minister spoke blessings and the whole hall went quiet. Only the music played softly. I kept watching Ethan's face. He tried to smile, but his eyes kept looking toward me as if he needed strength. Then came the moment every wedding has. The minister's voice rang out, "If anyone objects to this marriage, speak now or stay silent forever." The room froze. No one said a word. But just as the minister was about to continue, Ethan took a deep breath and said loudly, "Stop." The music stopped. People whispered in shock. Clara turned to him, her face pale. "Ethan, what are you saying?" He looked straight at her. "I can't go through with this wedding." The hall exploded with noise. Margaret jumped up, horrified. "Ethan, have you lost your mind?" Guests came from everywhere. "Everything is ready and you're ending it now." Clara grabbed his hand, her voice shaking. "You can't do this. You promised me. I prepared everything for you." But Ethan slowly pulled his hand away. His eyes were full of tears, but his voice was strong. "Clara, you deserve someone who truly loves you. Someone who wants to be in your world without pretending. I am not that man." I tried to change who I was, but in doing so, I almost lost myself. And I almost lost the one person who has been with me since childhood. He turned to me. I knew that look. It was the same look from the boy who once held my hand at the school gate, trembling, promising he would protect me forever. His voice shook. "I'm sorry. I was wrong to let others treat you badly. I forgot that you are my real family." Tears filled my eyes. The guests gasped. Some stood, unsure whether from anger or curiosity. Clara screamed, her voice breaking. "You're humiliating me in front of everyone. You'll regret this, Ethan." But Ethan shook his head. He turned to the minister, his voice clear. "This wedding ends here. I cannot say I do when my heart says no." The room burst into chaos. Margaret held Clara, who was sobbing, while Richard looked humiliated. Some guests stormed out. Others recorded everything on their phones. Ethan stepped down and walked straight to me. In front of hundreds of eyes, he took my hand. His hands trembled, but his grip was strong. "I don't know what the future will bring, but I know I can't lose my real family. I've made mistakes for too long, Maya. From now on, I want to make it right." I couldn't speak. All my anger and pain melted in that moment. I didn't know whether to yell at him or hug him. But I knew one thing, my brother had finally come back. In the middle of the chaos, I whispered, "Ethan, this time, make sure you keep your promise." He nodded, eyes steady. And I knew, from the moment he dared to end this wedding in front of everyone, he had truly awakened. For days, I couldn't stop thinking about that scene. The sound of chairs scraping, the whispers, the hundreds of stares, it all replayed in my mind. Aurora Grand wasn't a wedding stage that day. It was the place where lies and ambition collapsed. But in that wreckage, I found something priceless. I had my brother back. Ethan and I left together. Behind us were Clara's cries and Margaret's angry shouts. In the garden outside, Ethan sank onto the steps, burying his face in his hands. I had never seen him so broken. "I ruined everything, Maya," he said, voice shaking. I placed my hand on his shoulder. "You didn't ruin anything. You saved yourself." He lifted his red eyes. "But people will laugh at me. They'll call me the man who ran from the altar. My business might suffer. Friends might leave me." I cut him off firmly. "Better that than losing who you are. Better that than being a puppet for a family that only used you." He cried quietly, his tears soaking his sleeve. In that moment, I knew the walls Clara and her mother had built around him had finally broken apart. In the next few days, the news spread everywhere. Local papers and fancy magazines were full of headlines about the wedding that got stopped in the middle of the ceremony at Aurora Grand. Some people mocked him, others showed sympathy. What surprised me most were the letters and emails sent to the hotel. Many people praised my strength. Some women business owners wrote that my story gave them courage to set boundaries in their own lives. Aurora Grand didn't lose its name. It became even more popular. Bookings went up because couples said they wanted to marry at the hotel of the woman who stood up for her worth. As for Ethan, he quietly disappeared from the spotlight and went back to his small apartment in the suburbs. For about a week, he called me a few times, his voice heavy and tired. Then one evening, he knocked on my door. When I opened it, he stood there holding a box of apple pie, the same kind our mom used to buy during holidays. He gave me a shy smile. I didn't know how to start, so I brought this. I stared at the plates I had arranged so carefully. Bitterness rose in me. For years, it had always been the two of us. And now, instead of sitting across from me, he chose to sit with people who had only just entered his life. I tried to stay close to him, but every time I saw Clara, I felt her disdain. At a birthday dinner the Mitchells hosted for Ethan, Margaret looked across the table at me and asked casually, though with a sharp edge, "Maya, I hear you own a few hotels. Must be exhausting catering to wealthy clients all the time." I answered shortly, explaining that I managed the business, not served guests myself. Margaret smirked. "Oh, but it's still the service industry, isn't it?" Clara nodded, adding, "Mom's right." I could never stand listening to customers complain all day. Ethan just chuckled and said nothing. I stayed silent, but my chest felt heavy. This was the same brother who once stood in front of bullies to protect me, and now he sat quietly while the woman he loved and her mother belittled me. Driving home that night, fear sank into me. Ethan was slipping away, pulled into a world of status and wealth that didn't belong to him. Over time, it became clearer. He stopped talking about our tough childhood. He stopped sharing stories from job sites that once excited him. Instead, he spoke about the elite clubs Clara took him to. He worried about keeping up appearances, about his image. One day, I told him gently, "Ethan, you don't have to change for anyone. You're already enough." He looked at me, then turned away. "Maya, you don't understand. This is my chance to step into another class. You should be happy for me." Those words crushed me. After everything we had been through, he now saw me as an outsider. I couldn't tell if I was more angry or heartbroken. I only knew one thing. Clara and her family were changing my brother into someone I no longer recognized. And deep inside, I began to dread the day Ethan would finally choose ambition and love over family. The news came on a windy March afternoon. Ethan called me, his voice trembling with excitement. "Maya," she said, "yes. I'm getting married." I froze at my desk, gripping my pen tightly. I had seen him drifting away for months, but I never thought things would move so fast. He told me he had spent nearly all his savings on the diamond ring. The proposal took place at the Mitchell's Seaside Resort, complete with fireworks, wine, and a live orchestra. Ethan described his proposal with so much excitement. I stayed quiet, listening, but deep inside, my joy was mixed with a heavy feeling I couldn't explain. Just a few weeks later, Clara and her mother, Margaret, started looking for wedding venues. They listed luxury hotels in Los Angeles and San Francisco, some costing hundreds of thousands of dollars. Ethan called me, his voice full of worry. "Maya, I can't afford this. What do you think about having it at Aurora Grand? Your hotel is even more beautiful than the ones they mentioned." He was right. Aurora Grand had been praised in magazines and even ranked as one of the top 10 wedding venues in the country. When I saw the pleading look in his eyes, I knew what it meant. He was desperate to prove himself to Clara's family. Taking a deep breath, I said, "Don't worry. I'll cover the deposit. Consider it my wedding gift." Ethan froze. "Maya, $65,000 isn't a small amount. Are you sure?" I nodded, swallowing a sigh. "I'm sure. If it helps ease your burden, I'll do it." The next day, I signed the contract and transferred $65,000 into the events account. It wasn't just a big sum, it was nearly an entire quarter's profit from the hotel. But as I wrote my name on the papers, I reminded myself, this is for Ethan. He deserves happiness. I can't turn away. When I handed Ethan a copy of the contract, he hugged me tightly. "Maya, I owe you too much." I smiled, but inside, a flicker of dread sparked. It felt like I had just stepped into dangerous territory. Clara's face lit up when she heard about the payment. During dinner with her family, I overheard her whisper to her mother, "At least we don't have to touch our family budget for the deposit." Margaret smiled in approval, then turned to me and said smoothly, "Maya, you're so generous. Not everyone would hand over that much money without hesitation." I forced a polite smile, but bitterness rose in my chest. To them, my sacrifice wasn't a gift, it was expected. Ethan sat silently, saying nothing. I wanted to believe he was just trying to keep the peace, but disappointment cut into my heart. After the deposit was paid, Clara and Margaret's demands became endless. New drapes for the ballroom, imported white roses from Holland, even a temporary fountain in the garden. Every time I mentioned how expensive things were getting, Clara would shrug and say coldly, "Your brother will handle it. You've already done your part, haven't you?" Anger bubbled inside me, but I swallowed it down. I told myself, Ethan's happiness comes first. Yet as days passed, I saw his face grow more tense. Beneath his polished suits, he was still my brother, but now suffocated by expectations that weren't his own. One late night, I found Ethan at the hotel bar, drinking whiskey, his eyes heavy with sadness. I placed a hand on his shoulder. "Ethan, are you sure this is what you want? I've already given so much, but I don't want to see you unhappy." He forced a laugh, his voice shaky. "Maya, sometimes climbing higher means paying the price. Don't worry about me." I didn't reply. I just watched the glass tremble in his hand, while unease grew sharper inside me. By then, I knew with chilling clarity, $65,000 wasn't just a gift. It was the fuse to a tragedy waiting to explode. As the weeks passed, the wedding preparations turned Aurora Grand into a construction site. Workers rushed in and out, hanging crystal chandeliers, building an outdoor stage, and arranging thousands of imported flowers. I forced myself to stay professional, even as I overheard Clara and Margaret's cutting remarks. Then, 3 months before the wedding, I noticed something strange. I hadn't received an invitation. At first, I thought maybe they assumed I didn't need one since I was both the hotel owner and the groom's sister. But then a cousin called me, her voice bursting with excitement. "Maya, did you get Ethan's wedding invite yet?" "Oh my gosh, it's gold embossed with a handwritten note from Clara." I froze. I hadn't received anything. I called Ethan directly. "I haven't seen my invite. Could it have gotten lost?" He was silent for a few seconds before mumbling, "Clara handled the list. Maybe it was a mistake. I'll check." His awkward tone told me the truth. He had no intention of fixing it. A week later, while inspecting preparations at Aurora Grand, I noticed the seating chart pinned to the planning board. My eyes scanned the names. My heart stopped. My name wasn't there. I turned to the event coordinator. "Is this a mistake?" "I'm the groom's sister." He shifted uncomfortably. Clara approved the list herself. She said she wanted to avoid an unfitting atmosphere. My fists clenched. Heat rose in my chest. I had poured in $65,000. I owned the very hotel hosting the wedding. And yet, I was being erased like I didn't belong. The nightmare deepened. On social media, I saw photos from a family photo shoot with Ethan and Clara. Both families together in a city garden, everyone smiling. Everyone except me, Ethan's only sister. I hadn't even been invited. My heart cracked open. I called Ethan again, this time with no calm in my voice. "Ethan, what do you have to say to me? Why does everyone have an invitation except me?" He was silent for a long time before whispering, "Maya, it's complicated. Clara and her mother want everything perfect. No conflict." I snapped, "Conflict? Your own sister is a conflict? What about the $65,000 I gave you?" He sighed, almost begging. "Please don't make this worse. You know the pressure I'm under. Just this once, Maya. Things will be different later." My hand shook as I put down the phone. This was the same brother who once promised, "As long as I have you, I'm not afraid of anything." And now he was part of erasing me from the most important day of his life. That evening, the final blow came. The wedding planner called me in her polished, professional tone. Ms. Walker, I've been instructed by the Mitchell family to inform you that your presence at the ceremony would not be appropriate. However, the deposit of $65,000 will remain applied to the contracted services. I stood frozen in the hotel corridor, as if the whole world had turned its back on me. Collapsing into a chair, my mind raged. Did they really think I would stay quiet? That I would take the insult, lose my money, and give up my dignity? Tears rolled down my face, but suddenly a cold truth hit me. If I kept letting this happen, they would never stop. In that moment, I knew Maya Walker would no longer be just the pretty sister. I would no longer be the one paying for everyone else's dreams. I would show them a truth so sharp they could not ignore it. I sat frozen in my office at Aurora Grand, staring through the glass window. Outside, workers built the flower arch for Ethan and Clara's wedding. Others rushed to set up speakers and lights. Servers hurried to prepare food for the tasting event. All of this, every single thing, was being paid for with the $65,000 I had taken out of my own bank account. And yet, I, his sister, was cut out like I was nothing. When the wedding planner hung up on me, my blood boiled. No more tears. Only a hard, sharp anger. My name is Maya Walker. I'm 35 years old, and I grew up in Portland, Oregon. When I was only 11, my whole life suddenly changed. My parents divorced after years of fighting. I can still hear the doors slamming and the angry words they threw at each other. My brother Ethan, who was 13, became the only person I could lean on. The day the court made their divorce final, my mom quietly packed her bags, while my dad moved into a small apartment near downtown. They stopped speaking to each other completely. That left Ethan and me stuck in the middle, carrying messages back and forth. I still hear my mom's tired voice saying, "Maya, tell your dad the support check hasn't come yet." And my dad's cold tone, "Ethan, tell your mom I'll be picking you kids up an hour earlier this Sunday." Our childhood was filled with silence and separation. Mom had been a homemaker and didn't have steady work, so after the divorce she struggled. Dad, on the other hand, quickly started dating a woman from his office and ignored many of his responsibilities. I remember seeing Mom cry in the kitchen, staring at unpaid bills. Ethan would squeeze my hand, as if telling me, "We'll be okay." We learned how to survive very young. At 15, Ethan started working at the local grocery store, lifting heavy boxes late into the night. When I turned 13, I got a job washing dishes at a small diner. We counted every single coin together, spreading them across our bedroom floor, trying to decide whether we could afford milk, rice, or to pay the electric bill. I'll never forget the day Ethan looked straight at me and said, "As long as I have you, I'm not scared of anything. No matter what, I'll always be here for you." That promise burned into my heart and kept me steady when everything else felt like it was breaking. High school wasn't easy. I was embarrassed wearing old thrift store clothes. Kids teased me, but Ethan would step in front of me and say, "If you mess with my sister, you mess with me." He was tall and skinny, but the look in his eyes scared them enough to back off. His protection didn't just keep bullies away, it made me feel that even if Mom and Dad had turned their backs, I still had someone who truly loved me. On weekends, when we weren't working, Ethan and I would ride our bikes to the park by the Willamette River. We couldn't afford fancy outings, so we shared a single ham sandwich and talked about our dreams. Ethan wanted to work in construction and become a supervisor. I dreamed of working in a luxury hotel, welcoming guests from around the world. Our dreams were our escape from the heavy weight of our real life. One winter night, our heater broke and Mom couldn't afford a repairman. Ethan pulled the blanket tighter around me and took the cold on himself. I asked, shivering, "Aren't you freezing?" He just smiled, his breath frosty, and whispered, "As long as you're warm, I'll be fine." That moment stayed in my soul forever, and I quietly promised myself that one day I would repay his sacrifices. Looking back, I know my childhood wasn't normal. But the lack of love from our parents created something else, an unbreakable bond between Ethan and me. We didn't have a complete family, but we had each other. And that was enough to survive the darkest years. When I turned 18, I believed that only education and hard work could break us out of poverty. Ethan chose a different path. Instead of college, He started working right away in a construction company in Portland. I'll never forget when he handed me his very first paycheck. His voice was rough from long days at the job. "Maya, use this to buy your books. You need to study. I'll take care of the rest." I felt both touched and guilty, but he refused to take it back. Thanks to his sacrifice, I studied hotel management at the University of Oregon. At first, I was just a student working night shifts at a small riverside hotel. I cleaned rooms, worked the front desk, and sometimes even served food. Many nights, I was so tired I fell asleep over my books, but I refused to give up. I kept whispering to myself, one day, Maya Walker will own her own hotel. After graduation, I got a job at a luxury hotel in Seattle. Within a year, I was promoted to supervisor because of my dedication and quick thinking. I'll never forget the day a very important guest got angry because their room wasn't ready. I quickly apologized, gave them a free upgrade to a luxury suite, and even arranged a special dinner for them. From that day, my bosses saw me differently. I wasn't just another worker, I was someone who could turn problems into opportunities. At 27, I made the biggest risk of my life. I bought an old, broken-down hotel on the edge of Seattle. I took out almost $300,000 in loans and used all my small savings. That hotel used to be the pride of its neighborhood, but had turned into a sad, empty building. Everyone thought I was crazy, even my mom. She said, "Why not keep a safe job instead of carrying such a huge debt?" But Ethan held my hand and said, "If anyone can do this, it's you. I'll help." And he really did. Ethan used his construction contacts to bring in workers at fair prices. He even spent countless nights painting walls and fixing doors himself. One stormy evening, I remember him climbing up to the leaking roof in just a raincoat while I yelled at him to come down. Watching him in the rain, I realized this dream wasn't only mine. It was ours. After 2 years of hard work, we finally reopened the hotel. I named it Aurora Grand. I redesigned the rooms in a mix of modern and classic style and opened a restaurant with a talented chef from New York. On the day we welcomed our very first international guests, I stood at the front desk, my heart pounding. When they praised the service, tears filled my eyes. That was the start of a brand new chapter. By the 3rd year, Aurora Grand was making a profit. I used that money to buy another hotel in San Diego, then another in Denver. By the time I turned 30, I owned 3 hotels and even launched Eden Catering, a luxury service for weddings and events. My dream was to give people a full, elegant experience, beautiful spaces with amazing food. Soon, the name Maya Walker became known as a promise of excellence. Some famous couples even trusted Eden Catering for their weddings. When people asked me what my secret was, I would just smile and say, 18-hour workdays and never forgetting why I started. But then came my father, the same man who had walked away from us after the divorce. Out of nowhere, he wanted to be in my life again. He invited me to fancy dinners, introduced me to his friends, and acted like he had something to do with my success. I stayed polite, but inside I burned. He had no idea how many nights Ethan and I counted pennies just to keep the lights on. My mother wasn't any better. She loved bragging to her friends, "My daughter runs big hotels now." But she never admitted the truth, that our success came from endless struggle and grit, not from her support. Through all this, Ethan remained my partner in everything. By then, he was already a construction manager at a big firm, but he still made time to help me grow my hotel chain. I'll never forget what he told me the day I signed the contract for my 5th hotel in Dallas. "Maya, you've turned our promise into reality. You didn't just escape the past, you built an empire." But as my success grew, I started noticing strange looks from people around me, even extended family. Their eyes carried envy, calculation, hidden motives. Deep down, I had this heavy feeling. One day, even the people closest to me might test my limits again. For a while, my career reached a steady rhythm. Aurora Grand and Eden Catering became trusted names across states. Ethan was also rising in his career, well-respected in construction, in demand everywhere. We kept our Sunday night dinners, talking about work, laughing about our childhood. I believed nothing could break the bond we had as siblings. But then, a woman appeared. And slowly, I began to lose the brother who had once been my entire world. Ethan met Clara Mitchell at a city fundraiser that Eden Catering had organized. Clara was 32, the daughter of a family who owned a chain of car dealerships in the Pacific Northwest. Her mother, Margaret, was well known in elite social clubs. I still remember the first time I saw Clara. She walked in wearing a blazing red dress, full of confidence. Her sharp eyes scanned the room as if deciding who deserved her attention. When Ethan introduced us, Clara gave me a polite smile, then said words that cut deep. "Oh, this is your sister who works in hotels." I always wondered if standing at the front desk all day is exhausting. I swallowed my irritation and responded kindly. Ethan didn't notice the sting in her tone. He just laughed like she had made a harmless joke. After that night, Ethan spent almost all his time with Clara. He called me less and less. At first, I told myself he was just in love, which was normal. But soon, the changes in him worried me. Ethan had always been simple, worn-out work boots, his old pickup truck. But just months into dating Clara, he traded his truck for a shiny new SUV on installments. He started wearing suits, even when there was no reason to. When we did meet, he used phrases like "the right circles" and "our kind of people." My heart ached. This wasn't the brother who once told me that just the two of us were enough. One Sunday evening, I set the table for our usual dinner. At the last minute, Ethan texted, "Sorry, Maya. I'm dining with the Mitchells tonight. They're introducing me to important friends." I laughed and pulled him inside. We sat at the kitchen table, sharing pie like little kids. For the first time in years, I saw the gentleness in his eyes, no longer hidden behind the fake pride Clara had forced on him. Slowly, he said, "I owe you more than I ever realized. Without you, I would have trapped myself in a family that never truly wanted me. I forgot the promise I made when we were children, that I'd always protect you. Instead, I hurt you the most." I shook my head. "What matters is that you saw the truth and came back. No one is perfect, Ethan. But not everyone has the courage to say no when the whole world expects them to bow." He squeezed my hand with real emotion. "You taught me that lesson. I won't forget it again." Time passed, and the wounds began to heal. Ethan returned to his construction work, but this time as his real self, not hiding behind luxury cars or fancy dinners. He reconnected with his old friends Clara had once mocked, and they welcomed him back warmly. I changed too. I realized that success wasn't just about opening more hotels or making more money. It was also about standing up for myself, setting limits, and saying enough when others tried to use me. I even created a small charity called the True Vows Fund, starting with the same $65,000 I had once lost. It helps couples hold simple but meaningful weddings, free from showing off. I wanted to remind people that marriage isn't a show, it's about two souls coming together honestly. Months later, Clara came to Aurora Grande. This time, she wasn't with her mother. She wore no heavy makeup, only a plain dress. I was careful, but then she whispered, "I came to apologize." Her voice trembled without pride. She admitted that after the broken wedding, her mother tried to push her into matches with other rich men, but she finally saw that she was nothing more than a puppet. Clara had walked out of that mansion and started therapy. "I was wrong to look down on you," she said with tears in her eyes. "I treated both you and Ethan terribly. Thank you for freeing him and for forcing me to face myself." I stayed quiet for a while, then answered, "I don't know if I can fully forgive, but I respect your courage to come here. I hope this time you live as yourself, not as your mother's shadow." Clara nodded and left. I knew then that even people who hurt us can change, if they're brave enough to face the truth. 1 year after the canceled wedding, Ethan shared big news. He and his new girlfriend Hannah, a kind architect, were getting married. They chose a small outdoor wedding in Aurora Grande's back garden. Only family and real friends were invited. No gold-covered champagne, no huge orchestra, just flowers, laughter, and honesty. When Ethan asked me to be his witness of honor, I burst into tears. This time, I wasn't left out. I was the person he trusted most. As he slid the ring onto Hannah's finger, his eyes showed no doubt, only certainty. After the ceremony, he hugged me and whispered, "I found my real family, and I'll never lose it again." Maya's story isn't just about a broken wedding. It's a lesson for all of us. Sometimes, the people we love most hurt us the deepest. But by setting boundaries and protecting her own worth, Maya not only saved her dignity, she also brought her brother back to his true family. In today's world, money, status, and praise fade quickly. What lasts forever is self-respect and real relationships. What do you think about Maya and Ethan's choices in this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow this channel for more heartfelt stories and life lessons about family, love, and truth.